Hello, my name is Christian. I've got a bit of a disturbing tale. It's disturbing in my life, and I want to be seeking professional help. I'm going to try and keep this video under half an hour or an hour because I need free consultation, if you like. And I'd just like people to see things from my point of view and how things have transcribed in my life, and whether you believe I deserve compensation for an instance. And the only thing really that stands between me and compensation is a possible, I don't say a possible lie, there is a lie, but how that lie is affecting or has affected my life and the way that it's been dealt with has taken my life from what it was, put it under stress, pressure and everything else, and I will explain that to you. I had a business, carpet fitting business. First of all, I must say that I had a vision of God, and it was a vision of God, and I know it was a vision of God. I've looked for things that make God exist, blah blah blah, but the point of this is, if you have an experience in life, and whether it be you break your leg, there's certain professionals in the world, let's say there's certain professionals in the world that you would go to and to resolve problems, or there's professionals. The point is, do people choose the professionals you need? And the reason I say that is because I had a business. I was fitting carpets on multi-million-pound yachts. I had my own business. I was paying taxes. I had a van on the road. My life was all right. It wasn't perfect, but it was all right. And with this vision of God in mind, I set myself up into I'd seen or had a vision of God, and I positioned myself, if you like, into a life where I thought it was time to go and see a professional about my vision, to see if it holds any clarity, to see whether it was something God wanted to achieve, to see if there was anything that I'd seen that may have been written in the Bible, going to see if God would, if it be the vision or a vision. I believe it is, but I had the sense to know that it might not be, but I'm sure. I've had time to think about it, I'm sure, but at that time, I had a sensible outlook on something that was in my life, and I needed to resolve that as a problem in whatever way. So I believed the church would be the place, to sort of either talk or get help. Anyway, a strange thing happened, and I tell you, this is such a unique case. It's bizarre. So, first of all, the chances that, I don't know how many people have proclaimed to have seen God and how many have gone to a church to say what they've seen, but it was so vivid what I saw. And I went into the church, and I don't know, I might have gone in a couple of times before. I can remember having a confirmation and things like this. And I don't know the exact, it was about 12 years ago, so sometimes it takes a long time for the penny to drop. You can't sometimes see a point in time when things happen, when you're put under so much pressure especially. So I went in, It wasn't too long after, I don't think, thinking back. And we went into his office, and, you know, he will admit that we was talking about me and the vision. I don't think he actually asked me what the vision entailed till later on, and I was on the phone when I told him. But anyway, the point of this story is that he has literally turned my life he took away the life I had, and I've had to adjust to another life. And the reason for that, I've been through a lot of torment, tribulations, and this, that, and the other. And I went into his office, and we sat there and we talked 10 or 15 minutes. And then he asked me the strangest question. He says, "Have you got a mark on your side?" My reply was, and I will take a lie detector on this instance, because this is the instance where things transpired into, well, I lost everything because of this stupid question. He asked me if I got a mark on my side. I replied, I don't know. So I don't know how long it was after. I didn't like rush home to see if I got a mark on my side. You know, I went out of the church, probably did everyday normal things. And I went home at some point. I was having a wash, and you know, like, you can be in the fridge and a thought will pop up into your head. Nothing to do with food, but something will trigger a memory or a thought. So I was having a wash, and this instance, I didn't have a t-shirt or a top on, and the thought that he asked me a question. So, you know, there's nothing odd. So I look and I find one. I wondered why he asked me this. Well, I didn't know I had a mark. For years and years and years in my life, I wondered where my birthmark was. I didn't really know. I don't know why I didn't ask my parents where my birthmark was, but I just didn't. I didn't know where it was. Never been told. Didn't know where it was, and there it was. So the significance of having a mark, I mean, I'm not saying there is any significance, and, you know, having a mark on your side, which is where it's an strange thing, because if I had, like, Harry Potter's got a scar on his forehead, hasn't he? That represents a scar on his forehead, something that happened by Voldemort. Anyway, I find this mark, and it is my birthmark. You won't hardly see it on camera because of the light and stuff, but I'll tell you, it's about, say, big, and it's under my third rib here, under this area here, where you've got your, like, two little ribs, and then you've got like where your ribs sort of come out, just under that bit there. So big. So, not actually thinking anything upon it at this point in time. I just had a mark after being asked by a priest if I had a mark. You know, not knowing or wondering if there was any significance in anything at the time, I just went back with a reply. I went back with a reply to the question, do you have a mark on your side? And I did. I went back with no thoughts at all on the meaning of the mark, what it represented, no thoughts whatsoever at all. Whether at this time, all I went to do was give a reply. Nothing else. I was working, doing things, and I must emphasize this, all I was doing was replying to a question. So anyway, I go back to the church and I say to the priest, I've found a mark. His reply was, I didn't ask you this question. Right, so hang on a minute. I've been asked if I've got a mark, and now he's denying ever asking me a question if I've got a mark on my side. So I'm like, I can't remember the exact thoughts that was going through my mind, but I felt I was kind of gobsmacked, if you like. I didn't sort of know what was, going on. Why would he ask a question and then deny ever asking me a question? And to be honest, this is a point in time that my life started to sort of spiral. I don't really know why. I know now why. I kept trying to go back to him and, ask him why he asked me a question and then denied asking me the question. And I started to try and surmise why he asked me the question. And the only logical reason I could come up with at the time as to why a priest would ask me if I got a mark on my side would have to be something to do with the spear of Christ at the crucifixion, because they put the soldiers put a spear in his side. So with it being, this is how unique this case is, because I believe that's the place. I don't know whether that's the place. I think in my mind it's under the third rib, isn't it, where the spear of Christ, I probably read it at some point. So I kept going back to the priest, wanting to know why he has asked me the question in the first place and why he was denying asking me the question. And I was saying I've got a mark. Anyway, it caused me to I've become quite emotionally distressed over this. And because he wasn't talking to me and he was like, basically didn't want to acknowledge that he'd asked me this question. So then I started trying to talk to other people. And as I spoke to other people, I was obviously not in the right environment, which was the environment I put myself in the first place, within the church. And I think people thought I was saying I was Jesus Christ at the time. And I don't know, I really don't know 100% what was happening, but all of a sudden I've got mental health team coming round to me. I'm being told I needed to take a tablet and I wasn't well. I'm like, at the time, my life was taken. All of a sudden I wasn't fitting carpets. I was stuck in a mental hospital just because a priest asked me a question and I went back to have a reply and asked him. I just wanted to know why he asked me the question. But at some point, he phoned up the authorities of mentally unwell people, and I was put in hospital by the priest because he asked me a question. And now it's 12 years later, and it wasn't until I actually spoke about the situation and I sort of aired out my thoughts on a time with somebody that wasn't in my life. So, I managed to sort of get out of an area, if you like, that surmised something or thought something, and I managed to get out and talk to somebody that really didn't know me. And a penny dropped, and I thought, that's not fair. That really, really, really isn't fair. Because I was asked if I had a mark. I had no relevance. There was no reason, I thought, of having a mark. I didn't surmise I was anybody else. I was just going back to the church and asking why he asked me the question, and to tell him I got a mark. Anyway, the point at where I knew he was casting me off for being delusional or something, he was casting me off for being delusional. And I went in for a confirmation because I kept trying to go back and ask him why he asked me this question. I become very persistent because I wanted to know. I really wanted to know why he asked me this question. And I was told before I could have the bread and the wine that I had to be confirmed. So I can remember walking in, went up the stairs. There was like an office. It was like a school assembly hall, to be honest. There was a table at the end, and there he was sitting at the table with a woman. She was part of my confirmation. She sat at the table, and I walked down the room. I remember I walked down the right hand side, and I lifted up my t-shirt, and I said, "Here's a mark. I've got a mark. Why did you ask me?" And he says, "Oh, you've got one the other side." At that point, I was so upset. I didn't know what was going on. I got mental health people coming round telling me that I needed tablets. All of a sudden, everybody in my life was having a go at me. I was losing work, jobs, mental health people coming around. And when this started happening, you can imagine now, if your life is like in one instance, and then you get like pressures, like the girlfriend I was with at the time, she was putting me under pressure, and then all of a sudden everybody's putting me under pressure. I had a problem sleeping, and anybody that's not slept properly for days knows that it's not really a nice place to be sometimes, especially when you've got pressures. So all of a sudden I've got all these pressures coming in just because I wanted a reply, just because I went into the church with a reply to a question. That's really where it all started. And I started to think after a while, well, he must have asked me sensibly, because it's something to do with the Spear of Christ. So where there was no relevance to having a mark, because I didn't know I had a mark until the priest asked me. I didn't know I had a birthmark there. So because a priest asked me if I had a mark, I then surmised myself and thought, well, maybe it's got something to do with the Spear of Christ. So maybe I spoke that. But because I was speaking to people and he was pushing me away, I ended up in hospital. And when I got into hospital, not only was I in hospital, I was saying to people, I don't need a tablet, there's nothing wrong with me. And people were saying, no, you're not very well, you need a tablet. And like, I broke down. I couldn't go any further. I just broke down. And I went into the hospital and lost everything. I lost the will to live. I lost the will to fight. I just thought, well, what's the point? Nobody was listening to me. Everybody was turned against me. I don't know why people would turn against me for being asked a question when all I wanted to do is get a reply. I just went in to reply to a question, and my entire life was lost. The life I had at that time, lost, just because I went to reply to a question. Now, the thing between, I believe, me and compensation, I'm not going to beat about the bush. I want to take the church to court, because this is a unique case where somebody, believing that they'd had a vision of God, walks into the church to be in an environment that they see fit to bring out the vision as best as possible to somebody that may or may not have any understanding. If they didn't have understanding of the vision, then at least have understanding of the situation on a sensible point of view, not in a manic kind of point of view. I became emotionally distressed because I was asked a question and I went to reply to the question and he denied asking me the question. And still to this day, he denies asking me the question. Now, I do have a mark. If I'd have had a birthmark under my armpit or in any other place on my side, I guess I wouldn't have been so. It wouldn't have happened, would it? Because I was just going back to answer a question. Obviously, in the back of my mind, because a priest has asked me, he's found my birthmark. Is it something to do with the crucifixion of Christ? You know, if a baker had asked me if I got something on my side, or a plumber, or somebody else in my life, maybe, you know, if I was sunbathing and oh, do you realise you've got a mark there? Oh, all right. It wouldn't have had any relevance, but because a priest asked me, I was in a sensible mindset. There was nothing wrong with my mental state of mind to reply to a question, is there? Is there anything wrong with going? Some people ask questions and they don't instantly answer the questions. It happens all around the world in life. So sometimes somebody's asked a question, they'll go away, they'll come back with the answer. That's all it was. And as I went back to give my answer, my life got turned upside down and it was completely put in a mental home as delusional. Like I said, I pulled my top up and said I've got a mark. He said you've got one the other side. I don't know what he was looking at, probably my belly hair, but he was too far away to actually see it. So he was trying to cast me off as delusional without even looking at something that's there. After asking me a question, the only reason I went back was with an answer. I didn't go in saying, oh look, I've got a mark on my side, look, I've got a mark on my side, I'm not very well. He is now making it sound like I went into the church mentally unstable, showing some sort of mark on my side that I was never asked a question to. But the truth is, I went in with an answer to a question and I ended up being cast off from the church. I was told in the hospital not to contact him again, not to go to the church and keep away. So I was told to keep away from the church after he asked me a question. And I went back with the reply. Do you think that that is right? That I have gone into a church with a vision, something. If I'd have gone into the church, many things might have happened. I might have gone in, stayed there all my life, tried to surmise the vision, see if anything come of it. If something come of it, all well and good. If nothing come of it, not so well and good, but I could handle it. I thought, to be honest, at the time that things were going to happen because of my vision. I'm being honest, but it wasn't, you know, a problem. Not to me anyway. I was just waiting for things, you know, to happen. But, you know, if they didn't happen, you know, it wouldn't have been the end of the world, I don't think. But like I say, in a sensible way of thinking, I placed myself into an environment I believed I needed to be in because of a vision that you could say I believe I had, whether it be delusional, whether it be not delusional, whether I have seen God, whether I've seen a God, whether I've seen the God, whether I've seen whether it was hallucination, it's not hallucination, and whatever it may be, in a sensible state of mind, I walked through the church doors to try and get some resolution on something that I believed had happened to me. And I believed, by thinking back at my vision, that what I saw could be nothing other than God. I can't believe it to be anything other than God. I'm just a human on a planet of 7 billion people. I've experienced something on my own, and yes, it is kind of distressful. It is distressing to have seen or believe you've seen. It doesn't matter which way you look at it. I put myself in an undelusional manner, in a straight form of thinking, in a sensible way to do something. I put myself into a church, and I thought, I don't know what I thought really. Something might transcribe, but I believe that's where I needed to be. And I said to the priest, I've seen God. And when you say you've seen God, it can be quite like it's kind of, I don't know whether you receive them kind of thoughts off people. Instantly people think you're delusional and things like that. So I didn't really like to tell people I'd seen God, because it made me feel uncomfortable. So that's why I went to a church. So you can, after saying that I'd seen God, you could imagine that I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable. But you know, things transcribe, and you can go. I knew myself, that you get a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling, but I'd been in the right place. That's what I thought. But then he asked me if I had a mark on my side, and I did have. And all I wanted to do was go back with a reply to a question, and all of a sudden my life turned upside down, back to front. I'm put in a mental home. I remember being in the hospital. I pulled my top up, trying to show people, look, I've got a mark, because of the distress I was under at the time. Now, whether they were listening to me or not, they would probably thought, oh, he's just running about, oh, he's unwell. But I wasn't unwell. And when you're not unwell, and you're put in an environment of people that are unwell, it has an effect on your mind. The fact that you're trying to, all I was trying to do was give an answer to a question. So what are the chances of these things happening? First of all, somebody in the world would have to go into a church. And I did it possibly at the time, not to the priest, but I said there's similarities between me and Jesus Christ. Similarities. There was one similarity at the time, and I said there was a similarity. The similarity was that if I'd seen God, that it said in the Bible that Jesus Christ is the only one to see the one true God. And I said, well, I might have said there are similarities between me and Jesus Christ, a character written in a book, because I was believing at the time that I'd seen God. So if I'd seen the God of Jesus Christ, then that would have been a similarity. Later to transcribe that my mummy's name is Stella. So that means star. So I'm also born of a star. There are similarities in my life, but that is nothing to do with this. I'd like to take it to court. Obviously, my life has been, I'm battered and bruised, not physically, but emotionally and mentally. And it's all because a priest asked me a question and didn't want to reply for some reason. I'm willing to take lie detector tests, and I don't think he will take a lie detector test to see whether, because it makes a lot of difference to somebody running into a church manically saying they've got a mark on their side. I started off trying to reply to a question. I was getting emotionally challenged at the time because of the situation that he put me in, and he would not listen. And my life was fine until that point. It wasn't perfect, but it was all right. You know what I mean? But I got things in my life that I wanted to sort of address and stuff. But it's positioning yourself in life sometimes is the best way to go forward. But in this instance, because I was asked a stupid question, I don't really know 100% what happened, but you know, the paperwork and things will, you know, if it was to go to a court of law, this is what's happened. This is the truth. I speak the truth. Crikey, I've seen God, or I believe I've seen God. Why am I going to lie over a situation like this? Why would I lie about going into the church and being asked if I got a mark and then not receiving one, but I had one, and then finding out it's your birthmark? The fact that if you go back, I don't know, look at the ins and outs of that. Why would I find a birthmark at that time of a priest asking? Bit odd. So the whole situation is kind of bizarre, isn't it? So there has been, and I accept this, that there's been some odd occurrences and odd things in my life, and I've had to deal with that. I mean, thinking that my mum's name's Stella, born of a star, I am. And seeing God, if I've seen God, then similarity. So I'd like to take the church to court. If somebody would like to help me, I'd be appreciated. I don't know which way to go. I've been to the Citizens' Advice. They've kind of put me on to solicitors, but I think I'm probably going to have a battle. I'm not that strong, and my life isn't really in a situation where I've got the ability to do things as I need to. Thank you for listening. I do hope there's somebody out there can help.